Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside the Helmet. It's a lovely Wednesday afternoon here. I'm coming to you all solo. My dad is currently on a boat south of the United States of America. I'm not entirely sure where he's going, I don't remember. But he's on a cruise right now, having a good old time. So you're stuck with me this episode, but let's have some fun. It is another race week in Formula One. I'm going to Austria. And I'd like to open up with just some predictions. I want to give my front row for qualifying and my podium prediction for the race. Front row, I am going to have on pole position George Russell, and in second place, Lando Norris. Obviously, the Mercedes has been hardly defeatable all throughout the 2026 season so far. Obviously, I know we're coming off the back of a Lewis Hamilton victory in Barcelona, but that was, debatably how much it was due to, late safety car, the Mercedes fighting each other rather than setting off after Lewis. Regardless, the Mercedes still very well if Kimi's car didn't kill itself they could have very well finished P2 and P3, which a double podium is still not a bad showing whatsoever. I believe George Russell, kind of being more on the uptick now, after kind of having a slump earlier on, um, especially as we get into the more of the European leg of the season. That's where Kimi really struggled last year, and so I could very well see George at least getting the upper hand on his teammate throughout this part of the season. And then Lando Norris is traditionally pretty good around the Red Bull ring, and McLaren it could very well be on the up and up, especially with the engine upgrades that they are potentially able to bring. So I think that it'll be a good showing for the McLaren boys, and I think Lando is just generally quicker over a lap. He's more experienced. He's the world champion in the team, as disgusting as that is for me to say. But yeah, so I think George Russell and then Lando Norris in P2. That's just qualifying. The race is a whole different story. I think the race is going to be a very up and down one for a lot of people. I think the heat is going to get to a lot of cars, particularly the Mercedes. They don't typically enjoy warmer conditions, which it should be pretty warm in Austria on race day. So I actually don't have George Russell winning the race. I don't even have him in top two. In P3, I have George Russell. In P2, I have Charles Leclerc. He's also, just as I said with Landon Norris, he's traditionally pretty good around the Red Bull ring. Of course, he's won here before. So I firmly believe that, his teammate is coming off the back of a win. I think if Charles can get it together on a track that he knows and loves very much, I think the car is there. And Charles, of course, has the raw pace to be able to go toe to toe with anybody. But that just leaves P1. And well, I'm wearing the shirt. Um it's Max Verstappen. This race weekend has Max Verstappen written all over it, frankly. Um Red Bull are taking out some of the excess weight that was slowing them down of their car. It's literally the Red Bull ring. Max has already won here 5 times before. He got taken out by Kimmy on lap one, turn three, or turn two, turn three, whatever it is. Last year. So I feel like he's itching for a return to the top step, let alone the podium itself. So I had Max Verstappen claiming his first victory of the 2026 season. Next up, I'd like to talk a little bit about competition and just overall being competitive, whether it's a sport like racing or like football, the things that we talk about on the show very often, or something like video games. Anything from like a hyper competitive game like Rocket League or Overwatch with a big esports scene and cash prizes on the line to playing Mario Party with your dad or with your brother, whatever. Um, Competition's awesome. I rarely will enjoy something that is not competitive as much as I will once you add competition into the element. I'm a competitor, and I think odds are you probably are as well if you're watching this. Which, if you are, thank you, by the way. Be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. Inside the helmet, it helps out a ton. Um, but when it comes to competition, I think in the NFL in particular that there's a severe lacking in creativity, because I think creativity and competition go hand in hand. I think that as much as certain sports are physical, I believe that they are even more so mental. You know, you always hear people when they're talking about like professional athletes, in particular football players, they talk about, oh, this guy's so fast, he's so strong, he has all the physical characteristics. Physical characteristics are awesome, absolutely. You know, someone like Josh Allen, who's able to run over a linebacker, you know, throw the ball a country mile, all that physical talent is incredible. But what is even more impressive to watch, and what's even more helpful in ultimately triumphing over your opponent, it is the intellectual aspect of it, and that goes deeper than just outsmarting your opponent. But what I really want to focus on here is be more creative than them. I want to call back to the turn of the decade when the Chiefs were still wildly on top and before they became public enemy number one. When people were still parading them for taking down the Patriots dynasty and usurping them and being the new kids on the block. They were fun. They were creative. They were running around in the huddle behind the line of scrimmage and stuff, running in a circle and then breaking the huddle and going all over the place. And, you know, Travis Kelsey was throwing passes and they were doing all sorts of double reverse stuff. And it's great. The creativity, I think, is the most important aspect in most sports. It's what gives it charm. It's what gives it personality and true feeling of human nature in it. But I think that there's been a little bit of a drought. I think partially due to the fact that these new kickoff rules have kind of made offenses not as important, dare I say, with the average starting field position being so far drastically more upfield than it used to be. Offensive production is not as difficult anymore. And points are a lot easier to score when all you have to do is get to like the 45-yard line, either one of them. And you can get an easy 3 points. Well, I say easy, but like you can get a pretty reliable 3 points just by getting to midfield. And I think that's a bit ridiculous. I think that no disrespect to the kickers, you know, Brandon Aubrey's of the world. You know, I think what they do is great. I just think that it should be harder to get in that position. That's the thing. They're starting too close to the finish line. And I think that's stunting creativity and ingenuity and innovation. Take the tush push, for example. That sucks. Okay? Can we all agree? Whether you agree or disagree on its legality and whether it should be allowed or not, it sucks. It's stupid. It's boring. Okay? And that's the cardinal sin of entertainment and competition, honestly, is being boring. That's exactly what we see. I've lost a lot of my interest with watching sports at times just because it's so boring. You look at what happened in the NBA conference finals with Spurs and the Thunder. You know, the Thunder, the reigning champions, the reigning two-time MVP of basketball, played the most uninteresting, boring style of basketball that was just not respectable whatsoever that I've ever seen. I'm not even an avid basketball fan or basketball watcher or anything like that, but I tune in for the playoffs from time to time and especially the finals. But, like, good grief, that was just unwatchable. Not just according to someone like me on the outside looking in, but to actual basketball fans, that was unwatchable. And I don't know. I think creativity is in a lull right now, which is a real shame. I feel like we have more creative young minds than we maybe have ever had on the planet right now. But creativity as a whole is kind of down. Everything just kind of feels dull and emotionless. And that brings me to my final point that micromanagement is a serious problem in sports. Sure, you're always going to have your people that are going to try and get a leg up, either legally and legitimately or not. And I think at some point, you kind of need to just let him play. Formula One is a great example of this going very poorly with all the penalties and the stewarding and the micromanaging. Oh, your car went like this far over the track limits. We're going to give you a penalty, all that. Like, no, that's not pure hearted racing. That's micromanaging a thing on rails. Like, let them fight. Let them pour their emotions out in front of the world to see. Let them sink into this career, this sport, this livelihood that is their life, that they've spent their whole life and existence working towards. And now they're like, it almost feels like they're being constricted. I say just open the floodgates for better or for worse. Let the genuine human nature and personality flow out onto our TV screens. Thank you for watching.